Hello, and how do you do, everybody? This is Al Snow of Tough Enough, of WWE, of ECW, and Chief Cook and Bottle Washer, and anything else that'll get me paid. You're listening to InYourHeadOnline.com right now, which of course you know because you're at your computer.
All right, we are back, and we're joined by Shawn Daivari. Welcome to In Your Head.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Doing good, and yourself?
I'm doing all right. I'm watching Dog the Bounty Hunter on Larry King right now, so I'm going to try to see if I can get back to the N-bombs.
Hopefully there's to be none of that on this show.
No, not for me anyways, although I could turn the mute off the TV, and I'm sure Dog has plenty for you guys.
Well, what do you think about that, though, like taping people's private conversations?
I guess it's one of those things I've always said that if you never want to be caught doing something, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Not saying that I'm an angel about things I do. I've done a lot of things that probably weren't the right thing to do that people don't know about. But if you ever do get caught for something that, you don't want people to know about, chances are you probably shouldn't be doing it. So if you are caught, the only thing you can do is just plead guilty and not try and be these people that go on these, they have 1,000 reasons why they
right.
Just think, just, you're guilty. Just what's so hard about, doing the crime and then doing the time?
Yeah, definitely. But if anyone wants to call in tonight, the number is 508-644-8503. And don't call in with a blocked number. We can't take it. Let everybody know to check out ShawnDaivari.com. And if you want to book Shawn Daivari, you can email his agent at bookdaivari@hotmail.com. Do you have any upcoming appearances?
Yeah, I got stuff everywhere. I'm going to be doing an autograph signing in New York this weekend for Ringside Collectibles, and then I just got independent shows all over the country. I'm going to Japan in December, so I'm keeping pretty busy.
Cool. Now, a lot of people, I guess when it first came out, that you left WWE, I guess most people thought, they let you go. That says on your website that you decided to leave WWE.
Yeah, I actually asked for my release.
Well, what was the reasoning behind that?
Well, we were trying to renegotiate a new contract, and we came to terms on a new 3-year deal. So 3 years is kind of a long time to commit to if, and I didn't exactly know where the direction of my character was going. So it was some of a creative thing when we couldn't really come to a conclusion that I was happy with and WWE was both happy with about the character coming up in the future. And when we couldn't come to compromise on that, I was like, well, I'm not sure if I want to sign another. I don't want to hang around for 3 years if I don't know generally what I'm going to be doing. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, I was like, well, if I'm not going to be hanging around after my current contract is over, chances are, what's the point of hanging around and then just, you're almost like on your death sentence, If you can get out now, why not just get out now instead of just hanging around and know you're not going to be there any longer? So once I came to the conclusion that I wasn't going to re-sign for 3 more years, that's when I asked Vince and Stephanie if they would be upset or offended if I got out of my deal early. And they were actually, they were very pleased. They didn't have to let me out of my contract. I had a binding contract. If they wanted to, they could have kept me there. They could have benched me at home for the remainder of my deal or whatever. But, I think they were happy that instead of just dicking them along and stringing them along for the remainder of my contract and just being like, oh, sorry, I'm not going to resign last second, I think they were happy that I was honest and upfront with them, that they were cool enough to grant me my release and allow me to, continue making a living wrestling elsewhere.
Do you think the door is open for you if you ever decide to come back?
Yeah, I mean, everybody from Vince McMahon to Stephanie McMahon to Johnny Ace, who's president of Talent Relations, they all said that whenever you want to come back, give us a call. So they've never went back on their word with me before. I don't know why they start now.
All right. We should get a caller here. We got Brian Jones on the line.
Oh, hi, is this Daivari?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hi. I just wanted to let you know that was really considerate of you that time that you let Sabu borrow your ring pants when he forgot his. I read about that. That was pretty funny. My main I actually had a question for you. Is when you and Muhammad Hassan were doing that gimmick back a few years ago, and it was getting a lot of heat. Something I was just a little bit curious, if you don't mind answering. How come you guys never used the Iraq War as like part of your promo? Because I noticed that was, even when they had the thing going over there, you didn't really mention anything about it. Were you worried about upsetting people too much, or did you think that it's so unpopular here that might actually get people to cheer you if you mentioned anything bad about it?
No, that was one of those things where what we always want to do is entertain people, and that might be, have them cheer us or boo us or whatever the scenario may be. But sometimes when you get into scenarios like that, it just becomes untasteful or distasteful. The last thing we wanted to do was do something that would, it's one thing to get the people to boo you and want to see someone else kick your butt really bad in the ring. It's another thing to have them change the channel because they're so offended because someone they know or love is dying or getting hurt, due to real-world situations. And that was one of those things that we were always very, very sure we didn't cross that border from what was entertainment and what was distasteful. And that was one of those reasons that it wasn't really necessary to go there. We could have been, we were in Madison Square Garden with 25,000 people booing us, yelling us, throwing popcorn and sodas at us. Like, we had them. There was no reason to take it any further and risk offending anybody.
Okay, and was it really true that you let him borrow your ring gear when he, for some reason forgot his? Is that really true, or?
No, he didn't forget his. With air travel, sometimes bags get lost, and actually, the airline whoever he flew on lost his bags, and he showed up, and at the time I was on Smackdown and he was on ECW, and our gear was very similar. And Sabu was a good friend of mine. I think he's a great guy. There's a lot of people I would do that for. There's been times where people have lost their bags, and I've borrowed them my knee pads or my boots or something. We were just fortunate enough that me and Sabu's gear was similar enough looking that I was able to help him out, and I'd be more than happy to ever do it again in the future.
Oh, cool. Well, I just hope we wash them, But yeah, I appreciate you taking my call. But thank you very much.
Thanks for calling in, man.
No problem.
Did you guys ever have any trouble on the flying around? If anybody recognized you from TV?
You're talking because of the characters or because of the?
Well, I guess just because of your heritage, I guess.
Yeah, no, nothing really. I mean, at that point when we were doing that stuff was 2004, 2005. It was already 3-4 years after 9/11. I think there was, if there was any sort of scenarios or problems like that, it would have happened, shortly after 2001. But, like I said, sometimes Muhammad and myself even traveled with the turbans on in the airports and these big dark sunglasses where no one could see our face,
right.
Trying to somewhat stir up controversy, and it was nothing. Because I think when you work at an airport, you see enough people coming in and out that it's nothing normal. I can't imagine if a flight comes into JFK from Pakistan or wherever, there's probably 60-70% of the people coming off the plane look like that.
Yeah.
So to see that flight come in 10-15 times a day, it's probably nothing new to the people in the airport.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, when I was flying out of West Virginia, they gave me a hard time just because I had long hair. So just don't go to West Virginia.
Long hairs.
Did you have a question from the board, Incher?
Ryron, he actually wants to know, what was your reaction when they told you you'd beat Shawn Michaels in your first match on your debut?
Over there they really don't tell you anything until it's kind of on a need-to-know basis. Unless you absolutely need to know, they don't really tell you. And that was something to me that when they told me that, I knew, I was like, okay, it's my first match, and I'm wrestling one of the top guys in the company, and I'm winning. So at that point, my gears started spinning. I'm like, okay, this is obviously going somewhere. I had no idea it was leading up to Hulk Hogan and headlining a pay-per-view, but at that point, it was just more so my gears were spinning. I'm wondering, okay, where's this going? This is kind of a big deal. They're not just going to do it for no reason. So I was just trying to piece in my head, trying to figure out where it was going. And I went in 40. I never even thought about, Hulk Hogan making a comeback or doing a match, So once it got there, then I was like, oh, I see. And then that all kind of made sense.
What was it like just being in the ring with Shawn Michaels? I read on your website, that was your hero, before you got into wrestling.
Yeah, no, I mean, both of those guys were. Hulk Hogan was my hero from when I was, a little tiny kid, 3 years old, up till I was 12, 13. And then when I was 12, 13, I started respecting more the ability of the guys, more so than the, cartoon character and larger than life, icons that they look like. Then when I was, 12 till the day I started wrestling, it was like Shawn Michaels was the guy, so to be able to work with them both in one night was awesome, especially Shawn, he was someone that I'd work, Hulk, I only did it 2 or 3 things with 2 or 3 things times he was around WWE. But with Shawn, I got to see him on an everyday basis, so, I got to be a little closer with him, and it was always just a thing where I was like, man, this is your hero. Do not let him down. Do not screw up. It would be one thing if I mess up with anybody or if something doesn't go the way that I had envisioned it. it's not a big deal. But when it's with someone like that, it's almost, not to say he was like a father figure, but it's almost like letting down your dad. It's like, this is the one guy you don't want to let down.
Right.
So that was always, a little extra pressure. But I work better that way. I always work better when I'm under pressure.
Mm-hmm. That must be kind of a magical moment, too, to be in the ring with Hogan at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, to work at WrestleMania is a big deal. To work with Hulk Hogan is a huge deal. To work with Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania, it's like, what else could you ask for?
Right.
I just, one night in my first year, what people work their entire careers to hope to try and do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a short list of people that's ever worked with Hogan at WrestleMania.
Right. It's just, to do one of those things is awesome. To do three of them in one night is unbelievable.
Were you surprised you and Hassan, got so much heat or, really took off so quickly?
No, because, what we were doing was good, and if you had, I remember Mick Foley said this in his book, and it makes a lot of sense to me now that I know how, WWE works. It's like, if you have a symbol of talent and the company behind you, you'll be successful. If you have any more than a symbol full of talent and the company behind you, you'll be very successful. So I knew that we, together that we were very solid and what we did was very, very good. So knowing that, plus having the office behind you where they're, when they're in their creative meetings and writing meetings, they're putting significant amount of time and thought into those two characters, I knew it was going to be successful, and it was.
Were you guys like us, what went through your mind when they decided to, take Hassan off TV?
At the time, it was kind of like, it really stuck. At the time, it was like a huge kick in the balls, and I was pretty devastated. But now, today, in hindsight, looking back at it, I was only off TV for 3 months, and I came back working with Kurt Angle and John Cena. So it's like I left and came back in a bigger spot than I was in before. Mm-hmm. Like I said, looking back on it now, 3 months is nothing. I mean, some guys get injured and miss more than 3 months of TV time, but for me, like I said, at the time it really, really sucked, but looking back on it in hindsight, it wasn't all that big a deal.
You think in a way he kind of got, wronged because basically was taken off TV for doing his job so well?
Yeah, I don't understand the circumstances that were behind the whole thing. I still to this day do not know exactly what happened, what came from WWE, what came from UPN, what came from Viacom, and what came from Muhammad himself. I really don't know exactly all that happened, but it's a shame that they had almost a year invested into a character like that, and they had to take it off because, it was doing extremely well. As the only few things that have went that well in the last few years, if you look at them, are Brock Lesnar, Ken Kennedy, and Randy Orton. Yeah. And all three of those are, you look at them now and they're in great position. And like I said, in the last 5 years, Muhammad Hassan could have been the fourth one. That was the last thing that really turned out to be something really big that came out of nothing, just brand new, never before seen on TV. So it's unfortunate that what happened.
When we started the show, I know Barbie used to do used to Hassan people when we had him on the show.
Oh yeah.
Can you do that for us, Barb?
I probably shouldn't. There were people sleeping upstairs.
Oh,
the basis of it was, if somebody called in and annoyed me, I used to ululate down the microphone very loudly into their ear.
But Barbie's 5 hours ahead of us. That's right. Yes. Did you have a question from the board there, Inchman?
Yeah, Extreme Falls. He actually wants to know why did WWE decide to make you a full-time wrestler instead of a manager?
That was something that we both decided on. Something that I actually presented to Vince, and it all started on ECW when Khali was actually injured and couldn't wrestle. So we were just sitting at home for the time being, and we didn't know exactly what was going on. And I went to Vince and asked him, what would he think about me wrestling for the time being? And that's when we started on ECW, where I was wrestling with Khali kind of as like my, gigantic bodyguard. And that was something where he was still recovering from a knee injury, or he just had surgery on his knee, so he wasn't really ready to wrestle yet. And then it just started from that, and then when it reached a point where they thought me and Khali should split, they moved us from ECW. He went to Raw, I went to Smackdown, and we both, kept doing our own thing, and I just continued staying as a wrestler. And I think in the long run, it was better for me because, like I said, when you look at managers, you look at guys like Bobby Heenan, Jim Cornette, Paul Bearer. These are guys that I'm thinking of that really made it big time. Like, they were really, really big shots when they were on top of their game and the best at what they did. And then it's like, yeah, but they were as big as they were and as successful as they were never Ric Flair, they were never Hulk Hogan, they were never The Rock. And it's like, when you're in the business of professional wrestling, you want to be the very best. If you're just settling to get what you can get, you're not going to be around very long. Those are the guys that are the rotating door that, like, I'll come in, I'll just do whatever I can do, and I don't want to say they don't work hard, because everybody works hard, but if people are happy with what they got, they very, very rarely last. And the people that have longevity are people that strive to be the very best. It's very, very unfeasible for me to say I'm going to be the next Rock, but that's the mentality I have. That's the mentality that I keep, and everything I do, I have that in the back of my mind, and that's the determination and focus you need to achieve that. If you don't believe that, it's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. If you do believe it, it's very, very, very unlikely, but it's more likely than if you don't believe it.
Yeah, and the manager role is something you could do, sometime down the road. But if you want to really pursue your in-ring career, it's something you'd want to do while you're still in your prime.
Right, and that was one of the reasons why I left WWE is with that mentality. Like I said, I have that mentality that I am going to be a very, very big main event deal in the wrestling business. And sometimes if I wasn't going to get the opportunity there's nothing wrong with leaving and taking steps forward somewhere else and coming back and continuing, not where you left off, but further down the line. You look at a guy like Umaga right now.
Yeah, I was just going to bring him up. Yeah.
When he left WWE, he was just a tag guy. He wasn't even a tag champion, just a tag team wrestler, And he went in Japan and became one of the biggest things in all Japan Pro Wrestling. And he came back to WWE, and he had one of the hottest spots in Wrestle Mania this year with Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Say the same thing for Chuck Palumbo. Chuck Palumbo was on Velocity every single week. He hadn't done anything of importance pretty much since the Billy and Chuck gimmick. He went to Japan, became a huge star, got over there, got his motorcycle thing, got on the cover of motorcycle magazines and everything, and he came back to SmackDown, and it was looking like before Chris Masters got injured that they were going to have a big, high-profile spot at the pay-per-view. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to leave for a while, and maybe you come back, maybe you don't. But for me, it was one of those things where I had to leave now so I can continue furthering my career, and if I do at some point in my career come back there, I won't continue where I left off. I'll continue 10 steps down the line.
Right. The caller just hung up, so if you were calling in, call back in. Whose idea was to do the? I'm not sure how you say it, but what were you talking when you were managing Hassan? Like, what was that? What was that language?
I was speaking Farsi. It's just a foreign language. It's the language of like all the countries that used to make up Persia, Iran, parts of Iraq, Afghanistan. All these countries that used to make up Persia. My mom and dad were immigrants in the United States in the 70s, and then when I was born in 84, their English was terrible, so that was the first language I learned. And then, as their English got better and as I got older, then I slowly started learning English, and then when I went into elementary school, my English became very good, but I still had that as my first language, so I always had that with me, and I was able to, kind of incorporate it into the Daivari character.
Why did you stop doing it? Because I thought it got a lot of heat anytime you would do that.
It did. Whenever I worked on SmackDown, we tried to tone it down just a little bit, just because of the whole ordeal that happened with me and on UPN the first time. But whenever I was on ECW or even on Raw, my last few weeks on Raw before I quit, I was doing it every week.
We get a caller here. We got Ryron on the line.
Hey there. Why did WWE move you from SmackDown's Cruiserweight Division to Raw?
I think at the time it was more or less what they were able to get out of me. On the Cruiserweight Division, sometimes it's really more relied just on a wrestler's talent. If you look at the Cruiserweight stuff, really all they get is bell to bell. They don't do really any interviews. I don't recall the last time I saw Shannon Moore a vignette. I don't remember the last time Jimmy Yang did an in-ring promo or anything. On SmackDown, the Cruiserweight stuff was just in-the-ring wrestling. I think WWE saw that I was able to do more than just that. I was able to do the wrestling, but I also had a very strong character. It was also a very strong interview. And on Raw, you get to showcase that more, as it's a more well-rounded entertaining show, and that's where I got to do some of the funny stuff, like a flag match with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I got to sing a duet with Jillian Hall. I got to, butter up to Vince McMahon like he's my dad. I got to do a lot more character stuff as well as the wrestling on Raw, where on SmackDown it was kind of more showcase, just bell to bell.
Anything else, Aaron?
Yeah, I was curious why they switched somebody else into the mouthpiece role for Khali when you were, I might say, you were a heck of a lot better.
Well, the thing with that is I don't think that was supposed to happen. If you remember when Khali first came to Raw, we were both on ECW together. I got switched to SmackDown and he got switched to Raw. And I think the first 10 weeks or so, a few months that he was on Raw, he was just by himself, and they didn't plan on having a manager with him. Just coincidentally, we have this writer who was from the same part of India that Khali is from, and this writer would help him out with, hey, here's your travel information. You got to be here on this day. You got an autograph signing here. And they just saw this writer was communicating with them better than anybody else was able to. So I think it was just kind of one of those deals that it's like whenever they need a mouthpiece, he's with Khali. I don't think he does house shows or anything. Or I've never even seen him involved in a match in any way, shape, or form. I think more or less he's just his voice. Mm-hmm. So I really don't, that was never planned. That, like I said, when Khali came to Raw, he was supposed to be by himself, and that just kind of happened because eventually the guy needs to express his thoughts, and he can't do that, so he just needs a voice.
When you talk about the Cruiserweight division, we had Chris Jericho on last week. He was saying that he thinks that, it's important for the show and everything, but it shouldn't be labeled like the Cruiserweight. It should just be, the style they wrestle. Do you think that kind of limits people when they do, put the label on them as the Cruiserweight division?
Yeah, huge time. I think that's a huge label. I don't think there's anything that can hold a talent down more than that Cruiserweight label. Ability is ability. The Cruiserweight thing means nothing to anybody. I don't think it means anything to the talent, and I don't think it means anything to the fans, because all you're doing is limiting that person to one thing, and the more you do that, the less opportunity that person has to entertain you. I think right now, you look at someone like Rey Mysterio, is no one looks at Rey Mysterio as a Cruiserweight wrestler. He is one, and his style and ability is the best Cruiserweight in the company. There's no one that can come close to doing the stuff that he does. And they just don't label him that. So, a few weeks ago, he had a match with Jamie Noble. That was a Cruiserweight match. Both were Cruiserweight talents, and it was amazing. And then you also have Rey Mysterio versus Batista, which is also amazing. And people think nothing of it. They don't say that Ray is a Cruiserweight guy. They just say that was a great match. That was a very entertaining match, and they gave it a chance from the get-go. Now, when you flip it the other way and say you take someone who's labeled as a Cruiserweight guy, say Jimmy Yang, for example, you put Jimmy Yang in the ring with Batista, and before the bell even rings, people write it off. They're not going to pay attention to it. They're not going to focus to it or anything. They're just going to say that, it's this Cruiserweight guy versus Batista. He's going to get killed in 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Did you have something from the board, Incher?
Yeah, actually, Finley Effect. He's wondering if you have any plans on working with the Ring of Honor promotion.
Nothing specific yet. We just kind of chatted, nothing business-wise. I spoke with Gabe, who's the booker there, and, we just talked a little bit. It was nothing, business-wise, because I'm still under a 90 days no-compete clause with WWE, and since they have pay-per-view now, I don't think that I'm able to, like I said, the offer has never become serious to do one of the shows. When it does, I'll bring it up with WWE's legal department, but I don't think I'm able to do it for the next 90 days because of my no-compete clause in my contract, and since they are on pay-per-view now.
Didn't you work with them a little bit before you went to WWE?
Yeah, actually, I think that was the last show I did was a Ring of Honor show before I got signed. I did a couple matches for them here and there, and I think towards the end, we kind of came to a verbal agreement that I would be doing all their shows for them in the future, and then I got signed, and I wasn't able to.
Are you happy to see them be on pay-per-view?
Yeah, I'm glad to see anyone succeed. I don't think much of the competition is direct with one another right now. Mm-hmm. There was years and years and years that WCW and WWF were both around, and they weren't even in competition with one another. It wasn't until they were both on at Monday night in the same time slot that it became competition. So as long as that's not around, I don't see any competition in each other at all. I hope everybody can turn into huge billion-dollar company. TNA and WWE are in no competition with one another, just like Ring of Honor and TNA are in no competition with one another. They're all three separate programs that have three separate broadcast times. Once the broadcast times start overlapping, then it's competition. And until that happens, I hope everybody has the most success, because that way the fans are really the winners. They have three great products to choose from with three great groups of talent.
Yeah, do you think it's a mistake for a company to think like, let's go and compete with WWE instead of just trying to make their product the best it is?
Yes and no. I mean, there's good and bad in everything. I think there's certain things that, like, say, TNA, for example, TNA can take from WWE, and there's a few things that WWE can take from TNA. It's kind of like that. There's an expression that in wrestling that say, whenever you feel like, whenever you stop learning in wrestling is when you should quit, because you can always learn something. You can always learn something from somebody. I could be wrestling for 50 years, and a guy can have his very first match, and there is something that he can teach me that I don't know. And promote, that goes for wrestling, and that goes for promotions as well. I'm sure there's tons of stuff that TNA can learn from WWE and implement into their program, and there's tons of stuff that WWE can learn from TNA and implement in their program.
We got a caller on the line. Who is this?
Hey guys, it's James Orangecoin from the chat room.
Oh, how you doing?
Pretty good.
All right.
Daivari.
What's up, man? How are you?
Pretty good. It's a pleasure to speak with you. I'm a big fan.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much. I think you're like 106.
Well, I want to say I really enjoyed watching you on TV and Muhammad Hassan. You guys were great heels. You were really good on the mic too. I thought you were entertaining. I had a question for you. I was wondering your nationality. I know Muhammad Hassan, he wasn't really Arabic. I read that on the internet, whether it's true or not. I was wondering yours.
I'm Iranian, just full-blooded Iranian. Both my mom and dad lived in Tehran, Iran, and they moved to the United States in the 70s. So I'm a full-blooded Iranian, but I was born, my nationality is American, obviously, because I was born in the United States.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, I'm half Pakistani myself. I was born here in the United States, but my dad was from Pakistan. I was wondering if there's any prejudice or any barriers you've kind of had to cross breaking into the business.
No, nothing really. I mean, like I said, I think that the wrestling business is a lot more open-minded than most other entertainment businesses. I mean, we got white people, black people, Jews, Christians, homosexuals, Arabs, Muslims. I mean, we're a very, very tolerant group of money. I think we all have that common bond of we just all want to do what's best for business. So I never felt any flack or any heat. I never felt that my nationality handicapped me in any way, shape, or form in wrestling. Not saying that's not true at any other job, but this is the only real career I've had. I've been wrestling since I was 16 years old. I've never even tried to get a job in the corporate America workplace. So I don't know if that holds the true for everywhere, but I know, like I said, in the wrestling business, your ability to sell tickets is all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, orange, red, green, straight, gay, anything. So no, I never felt that that was any sort of handicap to getting me into the world of professional wrestling.
Oh, that's cool. It's very good to hear that. I had one more question if you guys have time.
Sure.
Yeah,
as long as he does.
Okay. I was wondering your favorite wrestler growing up.
Oh, like I said, I had a whole bunch of them. Like, when you have huge wrestling fans like I was, you really don't have one specific one. But some of my favorites were obviously Hogan, Shawn, Sting was another great one that I really admired. Bret Hart was another one I could think of. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. These are, I think I was lucky enough that when wrestling was at its peak, the 1998, 99, when wrestling was going through the roof, I was only 14 and 15 years old. So I was exposed to a lot of great stuff still as a young kid that got to enjoy it. And then, on the flip side of that, going downwards when it was more child orientated, I was lucky that I was a child. So all the Hogans and Stings and Ultimate Warriors and stuff that were targeting those, 7, 8, 9 years old. Luckily, they were hot when I was a 7, 8, and 9 year old. So I was always very, pretty much just whoever was hot at that time was the person that in my brain was the most popular and my favorite. Pretty much whoever had the strongest push was the guy that I was behind.
Very cool. Well, I thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to speak with you. I do hope to see you in TNA or on the Indies or something.
Oh, cool, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for calling in, James.
All right. Have a good night.
Did you have some, Barb?
Yeah, of course. When they gave you the name Khosrow Daivari, of course, after the Iron Sheik, was that something that was exciting for you, given the Iran connection?
Yeah, it was cool, because it was one thing, it was a throwback to the Iron Sheik where he was Khosrow Vasari and I'm Khosrow Daivari. But another funny coincidence is that Khosrow is a pretty common name in Iran, and that's actually my dad's legal name. My dad's name was Khosrow Daivari. So a lot of times, I remember when some fans knew that I was from Minneapolis and stuff, they would look up, I guess online, you can go on the yellow pages and find everything. And my dad registered as Khosrow Daivari was getting just tons and tons of fan mail sent to him on a daily basis because everyone thought it was going to me.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing it wasn't like the 70s. You might have gotten a lot of hate mail.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some of it was. I never really had a chance to look at it because it'd be like 10 pieces a day would come in, and I'd only see him like maybe once every 3 months. So whenever I would see him, all of a sudden there'd be this stack of 300 to 900 pieces of mail, people wanting autographs or just to say hi or pictures. It's drawn to me by little kids, so it's really weird.
Have you ever worked with the Iron Sheik at all? Like any kind of angle or anything?
No, we never had a chance to work together, but, we did a lot of shows together. He was at a lot of WWE shows that I was at, and we always had a chance to sit down and talk to each other, and I think he really liked me for some reason. I don't know why, but he did. And, so never had an opportunity to work together yet, but I'm hoping that at some point, before either one of us call it quits, we'll be able to.
Was it kind of like, was it like a good feeling when WWE would put you with, like, pretty much all main event guys, because they had confidence in you that you were so good as the manager role that you could get these guys over or add something to them?
Yeah, I believe that was the case. It generally seemed that was for the most part of when me and Muhammad split up. After that was my job. It was whenever they wanted someone to have as much heat as possible, I was the guy to put them with. So that was a pretty big pat on the back. That's how confident they felt. They were like, okay, we got Mark Henry who got injured and he's been off TV for a long time. We need to get him back and get him a shitload of heat right away. What do we do? Put him with Daivari. And then they had Khali. Okay, we got this guy. He's brand new. We need him ready for the main event. And literally 1 week, we don't have the luxury of 7 months of TV time of building them. What do we do? Put him with Daivari. Okay, Kurt Angle was another one. He was the bad guy, and people were supposed to like John Cena, but Kurt was so popular, they were just cheering for him. So they're like, how can we keep Kurt Angle the bad guy? I don't know, let's put him with Daivari. And that was eventually what brought me back to TV.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, obviously Kurt Angle didn't need, got to talk for him, but I think that's why they put you with him was, because everyone was cheering him. That was, the only way to get people to boo him. Yeah,
and it was a great thing, too. It was, I wasn't so much his manager. I mean, I was his manager, but when the gimmick started, I was his special referee. I was just, I only would referee Kurt Angle's matches, and that was something that they can't put a typical manager in that role because, obviously if it was just reffing, anybody could do it, but that wasn't the case. The case was it was pretty much almost every match, the handicap match where both of us were working against our opponents, and they knew that I was, smart enough and talented enough of a wrestler that they could have me in that position and I wouldn't screw anything up, and it went over really well.
Yeah, I'd say, before that, it was pretty much the only way they would get, the Undertaker booed was having beat up Jim Ross. You were kind of, he was kind of like the next thing. But, did you have something else from the board there, Inchman?
Yeah, Trevor, he's actually wondering if you ever had, a feeling that, your character was just a negative stereotype of your heritage.
No, I never felt that way. I'm sure maybe some people have, maybe some haven't, but I never felt that way because it never got to the point where it was just unintelligent and just stupid. Mm-hmm. I can't even think of an example of how that would be, but it never got to the point where I just felt like that's all we were relying on. Usually whenever I did get an interview or an opportunity, or even the almost a year and a half that I was doing, I went from Kurt Angle to Khali to and Mark Henry, and that point, we never once even made reference that I was a Middle Eastern guy. We were just using Daivari as Daivari. It had nothing to do with the Arabic stuff, so I never thought it was that bad. I think it would have been really lame if we went to the stuff where I was, throwing around a U.S. flag and spitting on it and interrupting people, interrupting Lillian when she sings the national anthem.
Yeah.
That's kind of cheap stuff that, unfortunately we never got to or never needed to get there. But, I was fortunate enough that whenever I would come out, I would always get a very, very, very strong reaction. So it never needed to go there. Usually those are kind of desperate actions that need to be taken when people aren't reacting the way that you expect them to. But I remember there was a point in time where I think I was off on TV for 3 weeks in a row. And, in TV time, especially as quick as WWE moves, 3 weeks off TV, people can really, really forget about you. And I was a little concerned that when I was back on the show, I was like, man, I've been on 3 weeks. These people aren't even going to remember who I am. But it's like we picked up right where I left off, and as soon as I walked out of the curtain, I had 20,000 people crapping all over me. So that was good that I'm able to do that, without, if I'm able to take a certain amount of time off TV, that it's not going to be damaging to me like it has been to some talents that they miss a couple weeks and they lose those 2 steps, and it's almost impossible for them to get them back.
Did you have fun? Fun being the heel? I don't know if did you ever work as a babyface in WWE?
No, I never had a chance to do it in WWE. I worked as a babyface tons of times before, though, and
yeah.
And I think that people are pretty open-minded today. I guess it all depends on where you are and what you do prior to it. Obviously, I couldn't kill John Cena on Monday and try and be a babyface on Tuesday.
Right.
But I think given the right build and opportunity, I think I would have easily been able to work as a babyface in WWE as well.
You mentioned the thing with Jillian where you guys were singing. Was that meant to go anywhere, or was it just kind of like a one-time deal?
No, I don't know. The Raw head writer, Brian Gewirtz, he's actually, a good friend of mine, and if you ever see anything goofy on WWE, he's usually the one behind it. He's a very comical writer. He writes a lot of funny, entertaining stuff. Any of the DX skits and stuff you see, there's a good possibility that those are kind of cooked up in his brain. And I always begged him. I was like, man, I love goofy. Me now when I watch wrestling, I love Mick Foley and Mr. Sacco, and I love the Midget, and I love William Regal and Eugene and stuff. Those are the things I like. So I was always begging him. I'm like, please, get me some goofy material. Let me do something funny or awkward. And at the time, like, I don't know, you're kind of in a high-profile thing. We really can't do that right now, or we really can't jeopardize, Kurt Angle's pay-per-view or whatever it was on Raw at that point in time to do that. And then since then, I went to Smackdown and ECW and back to Smackdown, and I had to work with Brian, who was the head writer of Raw. So finally, I'm back on Raw, and I'm like, okay, this is my chance. I'm by myself. I'm not with Kurt Angle. We're not worried about any pay-per-views coming up. Let's do something goofy. And he was like, yeah, let me think about it. And then one day, he wrote that, and I guess someone told me that in the production meeting, they're like, are you sure that Daivari will be cool with this, or he'd be interested in doing this? And Brian was like, I know he's going to love it, and I loved the shit out of it. I was so glad to do that. That was one of my funnest moments on my last stint on Raw.
Yeah. Do you think kind of open up your character as, not just the evil guy, give you something other dimensions?
The more three-dimensional you can make the people, the more opportunity you have to sell tickets, because you can work in any sort of aspect. That's something like when I watch TNA now, I see Kurt Angle as such a well-rounded character right now that any week it could go any way. And in wrestling, you're always thinking about pay-per-views. You work from pay-per-view to pay-per-view. And I'm thinking, on pay-per-view 1, he could be a good guy. On pay-per-view 2, he could be a bad guy. And on pay-per-view 3, he could be right in the middle. He's so well-rounded as a human being that people are able to switch gears on him with just a couple weeks of TV time. And that's the very best. That's when you have that, that's when you have something special. And you need to stick with it. I'm glad to see that now with Kurt.
Yeah. Speaking of TNA, do you think the same thing with the Cruiserweight division, with the X division, or do you think it's marketed a little differently because, it's, considered, it's not a weight class, not a weight limit, it's no limit?
No, I mean, the bottom line is you need a well-rounded character in order for people to care about it. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing with WWE in the Cruiserweight division. Not even the Cruiserweight division, with anybody. There's a tag team on SmackDown right now called the Major Brothers, and they're two wrestlers that are just there. I don't even know their names. I don't know which one is which. I don't know where they came from. I don't know what they like, what they dislike. I know nothing about these two guys. So they're not cruiserweights. It has nothing to do with cruiserweight wrestling. It has nothing to do with the X division. It's just two characters I know absolutely nothing about, and it's hard for me to get emotionally invested in whatever it is they're doing, either from bell to bell in the ring. You know, it's impossible for me to get invested in them because I know nothing about them. And there's some X Division guys that are like that, and there's some that aren't. You know, Jay Level's one who's doing the Macho Man gimmick, where he's very well received by the audience because they know who he is. They know what he's about. When he walks out, they know that, oh, he's the Macho Man guy, and they hear his interview and they hear his promos and know what he's like. You know, and then on the flip side of that, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but I guess there's a kid there named Havoc, who he wears like a dress and some weird face paint and stuff, and I know nothing about him, so it's very hard for me to get emotionally attached to what he's doing because I haven't heard him do an interview. I haven't heard the commentary talking about him, where he's from or what he does. You know, it's hard for anyone to get emotionally attached to a character that they're unfamiliar with. It has nothing to do with if they're a cruiserweight guy or an X Division guy, or if they're a heavyweight or a lightweight. It doesn't matter. As long as you're able to identify with that character, they have a strong possibility of getting over.
We got a caller here. Get Ben on the line.
Hey guys, it's Ben. Daivari, who do you think's getting overlooked right now, and who is the best and worst person you faced?
Are we talking about anywhere, or in WWE and TNA, or
anywhere as far as best and worst, and WWE as far as who do you think's kind of getting left to the side right now?
Well, like one person in WWE right now I'm really feeling is unfortunately getting left behind is Cody Rhodes. When he started and he was doing that stuff with Randy Orton and with his dad, I mean, I was wrestling him almost every single night on the house shows, and when that stuff was happening, he was red hot. Like, the people were into him, they identified with him, they knew his dad, they knew what he was standing up for, they respected his dad, they knew he was a take no bullshit kind of guy because he stood up to Randy Orton in like his first match ever, and the people were really receptive and strong towards him. And he was someone that I could feel it just working with him. I could feel him like he's going to be a big deal. You know, he's going to be one of those guys that are, you know, what he's doing now is going to be nothing compared to what he's doing in 2009 and 2010. And then there's a few weeks where I don't know if he was off TV or just what he was doing was not as important or whatever, and he lost it. All that stuff and it wasn't his fault. It was just, if you're not written to the show, you're not on the show. There's nothing you can do about it. And then pretty much they had to start the thing with Bob Holly, and they had to start over from zero, and now he's rebuilding again. But had they kept that momentum going, if they would have kept the momentum going the way that it had been going, he would have been, you know, a surefire, you know, bona fide superstar in less than a year.
Yeah, I agree totally. I think that the whole build up to was basically Orton versus Dusty. Like he you know got over like really quickly. People were reacted to him like, you know, he's a big star.
Yeah, I mean, I wrestled him every single night almost on the house shows, and every single person in that arena was on their feet chanting Cody, Cody. And there's guys that have been on TV for years that will go out there and you hear crickets. So I knew at that point in time he had that, and then, you know, talking to some guys that have been working on the house shows lately say that, you know, he lost a couple steps. And again, it wasn't anything that had to do with him. They had a good thing going with him. Unfortunately, they didn't stay on it and ride it out. It kind of got lost in the shuffle somewhere, and then it had to start over from zero again with Bob Holly.
Right. Do you have anything else, Ben?
How much do the house shows really play into you? How much TV time you're getting from the crowd reaction to the house shows, or is it just kind of a lot of backstage politics?
I'm sorry, can you explain the question better? I'm not sure I really follow.
Seems like the house shows are always the guys you see on Heat are really never on TV. And then, of course, you know, the main event, Randy Orton comes out or whoever's current champion. Does that really affect how much TV time you get on how well you're doing at house shows?
No, not really. I mean, there was a lot of guys. We kind of had like a group of guys, and then whoever wasn't written into Raw would usually end up working on Heat or something. But you got to remember on Raw sometimes, let's say Randy Orton is working in the main event, he might be on 3 or 4 times during the show. He might do an interview in the ring to start the show. He might do a backstage interview right before the commercial break. He might do a backstage vignette right before the last segment, and then he's wrestling in the main event. On a house show, everybody only works one time. So there's a lot more there's a lot more time to get everybody in on the show. So, you know, when you only have 2 hours of television time and then you take out commercial breaks, you really only have like an hour and 35 minutes, and you have certain guys that you need to highlight. Sometimes other people get left off the show. But on the house show, Randy Orton only needs to be seen once. John Cena only needs to be seen once, and that's the main event. And then when you have that other, you know, a legitimate 2 hours, no commercial breaks or nothing to fill it in, then you get to showcase more guys.
And you own the Daivari character WWE?
It's not really a character. It's me. I mean, it was Daivari is legitimately my last name, and you know, it's the character I've been doing since before I went into WWE, and it's me. It's not. I'm not a, you know, Jewish German guy playing an Arab American. I really am an Arab American. You know, I am a Arab American that felt prejudice from the American people after 9/11. That's me, and it's what I've been doing since before I signed with the WWE. So no, they don't, you know, they own no rights to it. I mean, I think they own the name Khosrow maybe, but we only did that for like 3 weeks anyways, and we stopped doing it.
Well, I hope to see you in TNN then, or TNA.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I think you'd really fit in great with their X division, and even maybe get you back with Kurt and going at it with Kurt again.
Yeah, that might be something interesting. I never really thought about that. That would be definitely options to explore.
All right, thanks for calling in, Ben.
All right, good luck.
Yep. Guess that was for him, not for me.
You mentioned the prejudice felt after 9/11. That basically played into the opening promos for the Muhammad Hassan and Daivari characters. I honestly thought that was absolutely genius stuff. You mentioned that Brian Gewirtz is responsible for most of the goofy stuff. Was there any one guy in particular who was responsible for that aspect of the characters?
No, I mean, I should rephrase that. It's not that he only does the goofy stuff, that if there is goofy stuff on the show, chances are he wrote it. But he also does a lot of the dramatic and serious stuff as well. I think most of those promos we did came from Stephanie McMahon. I don't really recall a writer ever really being with us on those things. We had a lot of different producers and stuff because it was a very big budget production filming those vignettes, but I think the general direction of those vignettes came from Stephanie.
Did you ever seen elsewhere, Barb? Barbie?
I did, but it's gone.
Oh, my God. One question we always get here on In Your Head is, do you have any good rib stories?
You know what? Every interview I do always asks me that, and, like...
They all stole it from us.
I cannot think of any that are, like, great, and I don't want to, like, redo ones, and I'm sure 5 minutes after I hang up the phone, I'll just think of something hilarious, but I can't. Right. Probably the funniest one that I can think of, I mean, it's not even the funniest one, but the only one I can think of right now was we did a mixed tag match with, I don't remember who all is in it, but, it was on TV. It was the same one that we sang the duet with Jillian, and it was against Mickie James and Cody, and she legitimately had her wisdom teeth pulled like the day before or something, so her jaw was all swollen, she was in a ton of pain, and like, you know, and then we got together and we kept telling her that there was going to be a point in the match where Mickie was just going to slap the piss out of her, you know, or, you know, just to show that she had a set of nuts. And she was, and she, like, you could see the horror in her eyes. She was like in so much pain, you could barely even touch her face without killing her. And then I told her, I'm like, yeah, and then we're going to do this and this, and, you know, you're going to get in Mickey's face, and she's just going to smack you right across the face and come over and tag me. And she was actually such a sweetheart about it, where she didn't want to say, like, that would kill her, but she was like, oh, I guess if that's what we have to do, I guess we'll do it. But, like I said, that's pretty gay. I can't think of anything good right now.
All right. Well, if you ever think of something, just call us.
5 minutes after we get off the phone, I'll have something for you.
All right. Well, let everybody know it's check out ShawnDaivari.com, and if you want to book Shawn Daivari, it's bookdaivari@hotmail.com. And you got anything you want to tell your fans out there?
No, I think you guys did it all. I'm just, you know, like I said, I quit WWE, but that doesn't mean I quit wrestling. I'm sure if you wanted to, you could see me. You know, I'll be at independent shows, international shows. There'll be tapes and DVDs out about what I'm doing. And, you know, hopefully you'll see me wrestling sooner than later.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to that. And we thank you coming on tonight.
Yeah, no problem, guys.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Can you keep here for 1 second?
Yeah, hang on.
This is Mason Ryan, and you're listening to In Your Head Podcast.